In September 1938, Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, took a fateful trip to Munich, Germany. The smell of war was in the air. Hitler had just taken the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. And the startled Chamberlain scrambled to Germany, determined to get a peace treaty with Hitler. He got one. Hitler signed the Munich Treaty. And in that, he was allowed to keep the Sudetenland in exchange for not taking more. Chamberlain ran back to London, peace treaty in hand. You know, there's that famous picture of him standing, I think it's either Piccadilly Circus or in front of 10 Downing Street, waving the treaty in the air as the crowd jeered on. The Munich Treaty, this peace treaty, hold really, really well in 1938 in London. Peace in our times, you may recall, was the slogan. Of course, it didn't poll well just a few months later. You see, Hitler had different plans for Europe. He not only delivered war to Europe, he delivered genocide to Europe. You see, what Chamberlain missed, what he overlooked in this drunken pursuit of peace at all costs, was to become the colossal lesson of the last century. Appeasement does not work in the face of genocidal intent. And when there's genocidal intent, appeasement does something else. It fuels the perpetrator. It doesn't stop him. That mistake cost Chamberlain his prime ministership. Churchill unseated him. And it cost 6 million human beings their lives. The mistake? Failing to recognize that a genocidal regime will not stop at a peace treaty. You see, the taking of the Sudetenland was the beginning of Hitler's plans, not the end. Now put a pin in that for a second. Let's fast forward here to Washington just a few weeks ago. Let's forget about the gratuitous photo ops, the selfies, competing Nobel Peace Prize nominations for a second, and let's think about what actually happened. We normalized Ilham Aliyev, the authoritarian dictator of Azerbaijan, who refers to Armenians as dogs, whose regime calls Armenians, you guys, rats, vermin, and a cancer that needs to be cut out of society. Whose government printed a stamp of an exterminator, you recall, in a hazmat suit, exterminating Artsakh, before they actually did that. A leader who himself posted a video on X where he stood in front of a bonfire stating that now that he's gotten rid of the Artsakh Armenian people, he was going to burn away even the aura of the Armenians. A dictator who says that Armenian churches are, well, not Armenian churches at all, but they're Albanian churches, who then uses a pocket knife to scrape away Armenian letters from the stone walls of the Armenian churches on video. A leader whose military destroys Armenian altars and cross stones, executes hogtied Armenian boys, cuts the ears off elderly Armenian victims in their own homes, and even saws off the heads of Armenian elders with handheld knives. You see, the International Court of Justice has said that Armenophobia comes from the highest levels of the Azerbaijani government. It is a sponsored government policy. There's no question that Ilham Aliyev harbors genocidal intent. But it's worse. You see, we're not just ignoring his genocidal intent, we're helping fund it in the peace document issued right here in Washington. Let's get rid of 907 and flood Aliyev with arms. Let's ignore the Artsakh people's right of return to their homes like they don't exist. Let's ignore those hostages languishing in Baku prisons. Hell, let's fund a road that cuts Armenia in half, takes away de facto control of Armenian territory from Armenians, and puts it in the hands of a private company. Really? What could go wrong? This is not a response to genocidal intent. It's Azerbaijan's dream scenario. It's an outright invitation. You see, Nagorno-Karabakh was Aliyev's Sudetenland. It's not the end of the agenda. It's the very beginning of the agenda. Why would he stop? Would you? Artsakh is the beginning of Aliyev's goal to destroy the Armenian state, and with it, the Christian Armenian people. Don't take my word for it. Take his. He stated that Armenia is not even a real country. In fact, he calls Armenia by another name. You know it. Western Azerbaijan. Chamberlain made the mistake in 1938, waving that peace treaty in Piccadilly Circus to a cheering crowd who was willfully blind to Hitler's genocidal intent. For Armenians, sure. Let's keep cheering for peace while actually arming Aliyev. Let's initial peace terms while pretending he doesn't have genocidal intent, while pretending POWs and hostages don't exist, while pretending he didn't just wipe out a 4,000-year-old Armenian civilization in Artsakh just over 600 days ago, after starving them to collapse for 9 full months. Let's just pretend all that never happened. The problem, of course, with pretending is, well, it's pretending, isn't it? And at some point, the make-believe gives way, and the harsh reality hits us in the face head on. There are Armenians in this room who know full well what that reality is, what that truth is. The truth is that the Armenian Genocide was the first phase of the destruction of the Armenian people. The truth is that Nagorno-Karabakh was the second. And if we choose not to hold Azerbaijan accountable this time, the truth is that the third phase will indeed be the final one. And I assure you that that final phase will not be pretend at all. You're the bulwark that stands in the way. You stand in the way of the fairy tales. You stand in the way of the impunity. You stand in the way of the destruction. You stand in the way of the erasure of the Armenian people and their homeland. You stand on the side of the truth. While Aliyev tries to cut the Armenian diaspora from the knees, it's funding its own diaspora. Stand, continue to stand on the side of the truth. And in that stand, no matter how long it takes, we will continue to stand together. Thank you.